Namaste. I am so glad to be with you again. I am Gloria Grace, and I am just delighted to be bringing you another episode of Live, Love, Engage. And today we are concluding our focus on the Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. It's an excellent, excellent book. And for the last 3 weeks, I've been covering each of the different agreements. And so just in case you haven't listened to those episodes before or watched them, whether you're joining us live today on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, um, go ahead, find those episodes, and you can check it out on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. But essentially, the first agreement was about being impeccable with your word. And that's really speaking from integrity, not gossiping, really being thoughtful with the words that you speak, not only with other people, but also with yourself as well. It's very important. The second agreement was don't take anything personally. And this is such a powerful one because so often we can get our feelings inadvertently hurt from what someone else says that perhaps they didn't really mean, because maybe they were going through something when they said something to you that upset you. And if you can stop and think and maybe put yourself in the other person's shoes first to see if there is any validity to it, first of all, and then if there isn't, then maybe just don't respond and just wait and see if they, reach out to the person later and say, you said this, and I'm not sure you really meant it came across in the way that you intended. Anyway, something like that. Last week, then, the third agreement we covered was don't make assumptions. And this is another good one. And I shared, and I'm sure a lot of you've probably heard the expression, don't assume because you make an ass out of you and me. That was something my mother used to say. And it's true because, again, it comes down to if you are assuming something, you could very well be wrong. So it's about asking questions, making sure, clarify, did you hear the person right in what they said? And if you didn't, then, you could respond a lot differently than just by going with what you first thought you heard. So communicating, to be able to communicate clearly is so important. And I really encourage you to do that. So the last agreement. So the fourth one we're going to be talking about today is the agreement is called always do your best. And want to clarify this because a lot of times we are encouraged, and no matter where you are in life or in business, you want to be able to not only do your best, but just really do things perfectly. And I will say I'm a recovering perfectionist. I'm a Virgo, and so my tendency is to want to do things perfectly, but doing things perfectly actually can backfire on you because it can lead to procrastination. Because if you can't get something done perfectly, then you think, well, maybe I'm just not going to do it at all, and that's not a good thing. Or it can really start creating anxiety because you're trying to get it done perfectly. You want it to be perfect, and then when it doesn't turn out perfectly, you can get really upset. Remember, folks, we are not perfect. We are, or someone, I think I even had a guest on the program maybe a couple years ago now who, like to say that, instead we should describe ourselves as being imperfectly perfect. and again, to strive instead to just do your best, and not sweat over whether it's going to be perfect, because if you do your best, odds are it may turn out very, very well and maybe be, quote unquote, perfect. However, if you do your best and it still isn't quite perfect, that's okay too, because the important thing is that you did your best. And I've been telling you, I've got this wonderful little bookmark that I have that I tape onto my desk, and it has the 4 agreements. And I want to read to you a little bit about it. Has also like a summary about what these mean. So for this one, it says, your best is going to change from moment to moment. It will be different when you are healthy as opposed to sick. Under any circumstance, simply do your best and you will avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and regret. And that's really another important point about this, is that if you, rather than trying to do your best, are just striving to do things perfectly, and then it doesn't work out, and then you wind up criticizing yourself, that's a recipe for not exactly disaster, but it's a recipe for unhappiness and anxiety and depression. Instead, if you do your best, if you strive to do your best, then that's a really good thing, because now you don't have to criticize yourself. You did the best you could. And oh, there's like, I'm just coming up with lots of examples here. So here's an example. I'm going to come back to that one. Let me talk about that when he mentions, you're going to be different when you're healthy as opposed to being sick. As a business owner, myself, I know that there are some days where I have been not feeling well. And on those days, this is where you, especially if you're, if maybe you're the solo business owner, you don't have a big staff or something, that you really need to be kind to yourself and practice self-care and not strive to get everything done that you need to do. This is where you can now reach out and get, create an agreement with a client, perhaps. So, here's a perfect example of this. I had a project that I was attempting to get done for my client a couple weeks ago, and I had an appointment that required me to drive about an hour to get there. And I was waiting on them and waiting on them to give me the okay to be able to upload their emails. And I finally had to contact them and say, I have this appointment that I need to leave shortly. So, if you can get it to me in the next couple of minutes, great, I'll take care of it. But otherwise, I'll be available later in the afternoon. And so I sent that message off and they responded back and they're like, oh yeah, no problem. No problem. Talk to us later. So then I was able to, I could relax and I was able to get to my appointment on time. I was able to drive and get there fine. And then later in the afternoon, my appointment actually ended early. And so I contacted my client and said, if you want, I can go ahead and get this done now because I've got time. And they're like, what, it's okay. We're taking more time. We'll do it tomorrow. And so everything worked out fine. And it was because I didn't stress over needing to get it done, needing everything to be done perfectly right then and there. I was able to get an agreement. So I not only did my best, I also was impeccable with my word too, in that I was speaking from integrity. So all of these agreements just really flow one into another. Let me give you another example of our parents. I've talked in the past on this show about overcoming limiting beliefs and that we may have picked up from our parents when we were little, limiting beliefs about being worthy or limiting beliefs about money. Maybe your parents said, money doesn't grow on trees and you got to work hard for the money and things like that. They said these things a lot of times because they learned them from their parents. And as an adult, especially when you become a parent, you start to see your parents in a different light because you start to feel more empathy towards them, towards the things that they went through. But it really is about now starting to realize that I was able to forgive my parents for the mistakes that they made because they were doing the best that they could with the knowledge that they had, the experience they had, their upbringing. Um, and so not only applying this to yourself, but applying this to somebody else, someone else is so important to be able to respect them, to give them grace, and to acknowledge that they're doing the best they can. And and it can help give you so much more peace of mind when you do that. So I highly recommend that as well. Um, let's see if there's anything else. Yeah, so I guess that's the lesson here ultimately is really just always strive to do your best. And again, realize that it's going to change from moment to moment and to give yourself grace about that, to know that that's okay because you'll feel so much better. You'll be so much more calm and able to go through life so much easier because let's face it, there are some days where you just either you aren't in the mood or something else is going on in your life. Maybe something else is pulling your attention and you can't give 100% of your attention to something else. And so the goal is to really create harmony in your life. I know lots of people like to say balance, but balance to me is having one thing or another, and s- it's not always going to balance out evenly. But if you can have everything work in harmony, this is where maybe sometimes something gets a lot of your attention where other things get not so much attention. But as long as you're still doing your best in all of those areas, then it's everything is going to work in harmony and you're going to have a happier life. You're going to be able to live fully, as I like to say, at the end of the podcast, that my goal is to really help my clients to live fully, to love deeply, and to engage authentically. And applying the four agreements is a great way to do that. I also, of course, recommend the love method that I write about in my book, Live, Love, Engage, and that I've talked about on the show in the past as well. So, um, but all of these things, there's so much good wisdom out there in the world. And ultimately, what it all comes down to is really, it really all stems from the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And if you treat your life and the conversations that you have and the actions that you take, and you keep that uppermost in your mind, gosh, you're going to have a wonderful life. You really are. You're going to have a wonderful life. So, if you have any questions about this, you can always reach out to me. You can go to engagewithgloria.com. I've got the banner up there that takes you right to my calendar. And you can, let's schedule an appointment to talk. I would love to see what's going on with you. If you have any challenges about this or questions, please reach out. Don't feel that you are, you know, my door is open. That's what I want to say. My door is open. So please reach out to me. Now, as always, on these solo episodes, I love to be able to find a daily word reading from Unity that applies to the topic at hand. And so I searched, do your best. And I found one. This is an oldie, but it's a goodie. It's from October 18th, 1931, folks. To give you some perspective, let's see, my dad was 10 years old and my mom was 6. So, needless to say, I was not around yet because my parents were kids when this came out. So, let me share this with you because I think it's really good. The affirmation is, in all that I do, I put the very best that is within me, the Spirit of God. So the reading says, regardless of what we do, whether we are directly serving God or engaged in the most commonplace physical labor, we are to do our very best at all times. If engaged in prayer, we must sincerely open our heart to God. If engaged in mental work or physical labor, we must literally put our heart into all that we do. Work is lightened when we cease to look at its difficult side and know that we can do all things through the Spirit of God within us. Our part is to step aside and let God do his perfect work. We lend our mind and our hands to the task, but do so without any sense of effort. We put the best that is within us into what we do and see Spirit crowning our work with success. Approach any task that lies before you with a mental attitude that the Spirit of God within you can master it without your becoming concerned about the matter. Then be willing to do your part, working at Spirit's bidding. By working in this fashion, you will find yourself free of mental anxiety and physical fatigue. You can do more work and better work when you realize that, after all, Spirit within you does the work and that you are but the channel for its energy. And then the scripture reading is from Galatians 6:4. Let each man prove his own work. But I love this reading because as I was reading it, it struck me that this is a lot like what Wallace D. Wattles teaches in his book, The Science of Getting Rich, another wonderful book. In fact, I'm thinking in the show notes today, I should put resources. I should include the links to these books on Amazon, and so that you know, or you can look for it, or look for it at your local library too. They may have it, but in case you want to pick up a copy of it, I'll put those links in there. But the science of getting rich talks about that, you know, you have this, I forget the exact language that he calls it, but, you know, but this inner power within you. And so knowing that, I think this is so good, just approaching the task, any task within you, with the mental attitude that the Spirit of God within you can master it. And this is important to think about as well, because this is where the love method comes in, you know, letting go and letting God, you know, knowing that you do your best, but you also give it up to God and ask for, you know, ask for guidance on how to be able to accomplish something, and then let God work through you. And again, you know, when you do this, yeah, it says you free yourself of mental anxiety and physical fatigue. And I absolutely believe that, because if you've ever had an experience where you've been working and things are just flowing, especially I know writers, artists get this a lot of times, you know, when you just kind of get in the groove and things are flowing. And that really is, I think that is the Spirit working through you. And so if we can call on God in anything that we do and everything that we do, and just give it up to God and say, you know, God, help me get this task done today, and I'm just going to do my best. Then God is going to say, yeah, all right, I'm going to help you. and just as I said here, our part is to step aside and let God do his perfect work. And again, if you want to use, you know, universe, higher power, divine spirit, whatever works for you, you know, you don't have to use his as a pronoun. But just doing that, as long as we do the best that is within us to do, then Spirit is going to help us achieve success. And again, even if things don't go according to plan and things do, you know, you hit a snag, let's say, that's our human part, and that's okay too. It's just, you just missed the mark this time, and we always have the opportunity to try again. You know, to do something, to do over, you know, ask for a do over, maybe from if you had a project and that you were trying to do for someone and it didn't quite work, just, you know, say, hey, this didn't work, and can I have another chance at it? Can I have another, you know, let me take another stab at it and see if I can do a better job this time. And as long as you're always sincere and coming at things from this willingness to do your best, then most likely everyone else is going to respond to that, and they're going to be understanding, and they're going to give you another chance. And that's really great. So in summary, I'm going to kind of go over the 4 agreements. And again, so just keep all these things in mind, be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions. Always do your best. And I'm going to add in the love method as well, which is to let go and let God, to open your heart to receive guidance and help from other people, to value your uniqueness, value what you have that's amazing and talented and skillful. Value that. And then embrace your divinity, really practice self-love, embrace the spirit within, and wonderful things are going to come into your life. I guarantee it. I really do. I firmly believe this because I have seen so many wonderful things happen in my life. And I will tell you, my life is not perfect. I've been of late not treating my body as kindly as I should. And so I'm getting back on track with that. And I can beat myself up over it, but that's not going to do any good. So instead, I'm just going to do my best. I'm just going to do my best today, and don't take anything personally for myself, and be impeccable with myself, with the words that I use to myself, and be kind to myself. And I've been able to, start flipping things around. And I'll tell you the one thing that I'm going to share with you now, the one thing that has really been the mainstay for me the last couple of years that has helped me tremendously has been channeling light language. And I watched a wonderful, interesting. It was wonderful. Parts of it were, the beginning was a little confusing, but it was about, I think it's called Light Language Divine Unity, I think is the name of it. And you can find it on YouTube. And it showcased a lot of different people about their experiences with how they started to channel light language, what it really means, and what they understand it to mean. And then they would share some light language in this documentary. And what was so confirming to me was that so many of them talked about it the same way that I do. So I know that we're all coming from the same thing, and it's essentially is love. It's a message of love. It's a message of love that speaks to your heart. It's something that our mind, our brain doesn't understand. It can't necessarily decipher, translate the sounds that are coming out of someone's mouth as specific words. But it doesn't matter because it's the feeling. It's the feeling that you get from it. And just about everyone, talked about setting the intention that what comes through will be for their highest good and the highest good of everyone else's. And that's what I always share with you as well, is that that what comes through from my higher source, from higher realms, will help you today with whatever your soul needs, whatever is important for you today. So that's what I'm going to share with you today is I'm setting the intention that the message that comes through will help you perhaps to be kind to yourself, to always do your best, but ultimately to help you to heal whatever needs to be healed within you, spiritually, emotionally, essentially just to help you with whatever your soul needs today. So let's see what Spirit has to say for you today. Oh, and as always, if you're listening to this while you're operating machinery, come back to this later and listen to it. I think it's just so much better when you can listen with an open heart and mind and you're not focused on anything else. Here we go. Disclaimer out of the way. All right, here we go. Koyo to hikaye, ano koshia, ho ano no kiho, asayo kohe, o hukaya to he, ahu husi hoyate, o yano ne kohe ka, asayo to hi ho. Oshitoyano otasika oyotoyakuati osam okakoyoyeko osoyoto oyosohu oshakoshi no koyatia oyonaka hansokoshi anokoya Eano, asakia shakotoyata. O kien no ku kalia totoya te yato hua mana, e kasataki en kondotoya te yasa. E kanino toto karia patu kacho shatkaria da kayata. E satachi on kotoe mama ki kaliata. Soyo no koika, e kaliata to in kapane shikariata. E kashoko no hu mania kariata. He kayanoki atuhia, akatu sayotu anaye, o kaye kohua, o shikokutua, o hoya kokohiko, akoyanoku he, o seka. E shikodia take, hakoria no koya, papaya shi, ono koya tatekea, no tia katea, o shakatia te shikoto koria pata, e kashia tatea ka. All right. I hope you received that with the love with which it was transmitted. So I hope so. And again, if you ever want to actually book a session with me, you can again reach out to me on my website. You can go to gloriarand.com. You can also go to heal.me/Gloria, and they'll give you, that's a lovely page where it has a lot of information about what I do. And again, you can sign up for a free consultation there as well. So yeah, I think that's going to do it for today. So thank you so much for listening, for watching. Again, if you receive value from this today, I hope you will share it with a friend. And until next time, as always, I encourage you to go out and live fully, love deeply, and engage authentically.